Hi everyone, this is Taylor from Artist Growth Studio, and today I'm going to give you a quick scroll through of one of our recent personalized collector reports to give you a better idea of what kind of content you get. Here we go! So here is a recent report for an artist called Sarah Blade. This is covering the first season of 2025, January to March. Here's a little bit of bio from her onboarding form. Here you can see the contents. So we start with a one-pager quick wins checklist, which is basically a summary of all the recommendations given throughout the report. If we scroll through, you can see this particular report is 23 pages. These are all personalized, so yours is going to be, give or take this. Could be slightly different depending on your situation. Next section is benchmarking to the current market. So this is going to include a pricing strategy, subject strategy, things like that. Next is who's buying work like yours. So this is where we're deep diving into collector personas, demographics, who your collectors are, where they are, things like that. And finally, ending on a big picture seasonal strategy. So where you can focus your energy right now. So if we just scroll through, here's that one pager quick wins checklist. We divide this into different key topics. So we have pricing and positioning of current artworks, summer, spring in-person events. So again, this was the season ending in March, and then now recommendations are for the upcoming spring, summer. And then we have social media. So even though these recs might look different for you because this is all personalized, or they will look different, we always have a social media section. For example, then we move on to benchmarking to the current market. So again, here's that pricing strategy. We also look at this with respect to different dimensions. So sizes, of course, that plays such a big role in pricing. We give a representative price for each size range for this particular artist's work. So this is oil and acrylic paintings. We start with all subjects, but then we dive into specific subjects if you have multiple subjects that you work on. In this case, the artist is landscape and still life, but this would be adjusted to yours. On every page, we have a what this means section, which is kind of the highlight key takeaway. So if nothing else, you can just flick through the report and look for these blue sections on key recommendations. Next, we get into subject storytelling. And then again, we have what does this mean about when talking about your work? So this is, also related to the specific region the artist is in. So this artist is located in Portland, Oregon in the Pacific Northwest. So those all relate to that. Next, we have some key tips whenever listing your work online. So this is anything from optimizing your website to certificates, authenticity, to what to include in the listing, like if it's ready to hang, to also a number of words for the artwork descriptions, bios, and key hashtags. And then we have who's buying work like yours. So this is deep diving into who your collectors are. We summarize this section by starting off with a couple of key personas, which are basically, made up people that represent a much larger group of people. So these are sort of the common themes and characteristics that represent this particular artist's wider collector segment. So common traits and personalities and things that we can generalize on how to connect with these people and what sort of channels they're often on, what do they find appealing, some high-level tips on how to reach them, things like that. In the personalized action plan, we go into much more detail on how to reach them with even, specific setting recommendations for paid ads if you want to do paid ads, to how to build that sustainable growth funnel that will feed back to your own personal website, for example. We go into much deeper tactics. And then we have some demographics on where collectors are located, how old they are. Again, every page has so what does this mean? Gender splits still with respect to age. What does this mean? So whenever you think about how you would even use this information, just ask yourself, how would your entire marketing, imagery, communication, things that you talk about in the narratives connect back to, how would that all change if you were trying to sell to someone who was 65 years old compared to 25 years old? There's a lot that could and should change between those two people in terms of cultural references, things they connect to, care about, things like that. Then we have social media habits for painting collectors. So this is going into those specific social media channels and comparing to last year and last season to see what's changed. Again, what does this mean? So where to prioritize your time and effort. We have specific websites that collectors are visiting and spending a lot of time on, as well as some specific examples there. So what does this mean for where to get your artwork featured, where to potentially post paid ads, who to collaborate with, what collectors are Google searching? So these are words that you can incorporate into hashtags or topics that you can talk about online. And then this particular artist, they wanted to leverage more in-person opportunities as well, especially coming into spring and summer when there's lots of events happening. So I actually do additional research for this specific geography that each artist is located in to find some key opportunities that you can apply for, whether it's retail partnerships or markets or fairs or competitions or, anything like that. And then we give information like application deadline, a description of what it is, and some tips that relate back to what those specific interests and demographics are of your collectors and how you could have best chance of selling. And then finally, we have the big picture. So this is the seasonal strategy. So what to expect at this time of year typically, and then how this specific year might be different from previous years, and then ultimately where to focus your time and energy on right now. And then that's about it. So this is, again, just for one specific artist. Yours will be different, but hopefully that gives you a good idea of what you can expect in a personalized collector report. I'll do a separate video for the action plan, which goes into much more detail about not only who your collectors are and where they are, but how to reach them.